Welcome to the HUD Billing Requirements webinar. I am Lynn Maynard, the Assistant Compliance Officer. The Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency has diligently pursued its mission to foster community and economic development in making the Commonwealth a better place to live. PHFA provides the capital for decent, safe, and affordable homes and apartments for older adults, persons of modest means, and those persons with special housing needs. PHFA works with housing counseling agencies, local lending institutions, realtors, and other public and private organizations. Through the years, it has gained the experience necessary to be effective in Pennsylvania communities by providing services, programs that expand and protect home ownership, and stabilize urban and rural neighborhoods. So our agenda for today, as you can see here, is creating a case in RX, budget, action plan, selecting outcomes, creating a workshop, HUD forms, running the HUD report, running the workshop report, billing instructions, knowledge check, certifying statement, PHFA organizational chart, and the wrap-up. So section 1, creating a case in RX. Creating a prospect lead case in RX. We recommend starting with the creation of a prospect lead case. This case is a seed case used to work on the case before assigning an initiative for billing. All the information entered in the prospect lead case will carry into the final case type. Once a prospect lead case has been created, it can be transitioned into any other case type. This is useful in several scenarios, including during preliminary consultation with the client. If the client will be participating in different types of counseling, instead of entering all the information 2 or 3 times, information is entered into the prospect lead case can populate the final cases for each initiative. If the client is on the phone and is not prepared to provide a full set of information necessary to create a pre-purchase, loss mitigation, or post-purchase counseling session, or if it's unclear from the start which initiatives the counselor will bill for the work. So in creating a prospect lead case, on the dashboard of RX Office, select the New Case tab. In the Case Type drop-down, select Prospect Lead. And on the right side of the page here, select Add New Client. So when you're creating a prospect lead case, you have to use as much information as possible, and everything that has a red asterisk is required. Data is counted by client and not by household. It is also not counted by the number of family members who attend. A single person is counted once for each service, and then count by distinct services. For example, households completing multiple distinct courses or workshops should be recorded for each course or workshop completed. By contrast, if a household attends a pre-purchase home buyer education workshop that takes place over the course of 4 sessions, that household should only be counted once because they received one distinct service. Then comes back for one-on-one counseling, count that household twice, once for the workshop and once for the one-on-one counseling, and then click Save. Pulling a credit report. Please note that credit scores are required for all clients billed to HUD except those seen for homeless prevention, home equity reverse mortgage, HECM, and workshops. To pull a credit report on the dashboard, click Case Info tab here on the left. Click on Order Credit Report, shown here on the bottom right of the screen. A pop-up dialog box will appear allowing you to select scores from any of the 3 credit bureaus or a tri-merge. A tri-merge credit report must be pulled before or during the initial counseling appointment. Click Order Credit Report As a reminder, the credit reports are not required for workshop participants. By signing the 3-in-1 form, the client is giving permission for a credit report to be pulled. Also note, a tri-merge credit report is required to be pulled prior to or during the initial appointment and before termination of services. Additional pools are strongly encouraged to track and assess the client's progress. The cost for tri-merge is $18.65 through Credco, effective January 5th, 2022. Note that PHFA requires a tri-merge for all PHFA initiatives. Copying the credit report to the Financial tab. When RX receives the credit report, it will be shown in the Credit Reports section of the Case Info tab. To transfer the information to the Financial Info tab of RX, click Apply, shown here on the right. Importing a prospect lead case in RX. After the prospect lead case has been saved and the credit report has been downloaded, from the dashboard, select Import Prospect Case, shown up here in the upper left-hand corner. Enter as much available information as possible and then select Search. Select the case number, shown here on the left as an example of the appropriate case. After selecting the appropriate case, select Import Case, shown here in the upper right-hand corner. Then you choose the case type and then select Import. This slide shows the HUD counseling type and case status. These case statuses only apply to HUD. Do not use these counseling types and case statuses for CHCI billing. Importing a prospect lead case in RX. After you've gone through all the previous steps, this is how your screen should appear. It should show the client's name, the case number, the case category, case type, and case status. Selecting a guarantor. On the dashboard, while in the case, click on the Case Info tab on the upper left here. Then click Edit under the Counseling section, shown here in the middle. Select the appropriate guarantor from the list. The current guarantor is NOFA 2021-1 Comp. PHFA will advise you when to change guarantors. Selecting a case status. On the dashboard, while in the case, click on the Case Info tab, shown on the upper left. In the Case Information section, select Update Case Status, shown here in the lower right. From the drop-down menu, select the correct case status and click Save. Section 2, the budget. On the dashboard, while in the case, select the Financial tab, shown in the upper left. Click on the Expense tab. In the Credit Report Amounts section, click Apply, shown here on the right. Copying a credit report to the Financial tab, click in the Liability tab. In the Credit Report Amounts, select Apply. Complete all financial information under each tab. Collect required documents for verification as per the funding policy. And you check on the Document Upload tab in RX Office. The credit report alone is not sufficient. Documents must be 30 days current to the appointment, and a copy must be provided to the client. Big caveat here, do not enter financial information into the tabs until after you import the credit report. The credit report will overwrite any information you previously entered. So in creating a budget, Click Save at the bottom of each tab before moving on to the next. So underneath the document uploads, so for the required documents, this will be the Upload tab. So you see all the required forms here on the left-hand side that are in the text boxes. In the borrower authorization, the 3-in-1 disclosure, click on Upload, as well as for the credit report, pay stubs, tax returns, W-2s, bank statements, then the action plan, section 3. While in the case, select the Universal Action Plan tab on the dashboard, shown above. Complete all information marked with a red asterisk. You must include the client's goals and needs. It needs to be client-specific and detailed. The signed and dated Universal Action Plan must be uploaded to the Documents section of RX Office. Client and counselor signatures are needed prior to billing submission for each session. A copy must be provided to the client. And for follow-ups, a new action plan must be completed and signed for each session. Complete action steps for both the client and the counselor, including a target date. Then click Save. After the action plan has been completed and saved, the client and counselor must sign the action plan as evidence they received it. You need to scan the action plan, name the document and save it to a file on your computer, and upload into RX. To upload, on the dashboard, click the Documents tab. Under the required documents, click on the Document Uploads tab. In the Universal Action Plan row, click on Upload, shown here on the right. Select the document where you have it stored, and then click Upload. Uploading documents into RX. After you have completed the upload, the document will be shown on the Documents tab. Section 4, Selecting an Outcome. To select the outcome, go to the Case Info tab. In the HUD Outcomes section, click Edit, shown down below here on the lower right-hand side. The pop-up box will appear. Check the box next to all the outcomes you wish to select and click Save. This must be updated as you continue through counseling sessions to the ultimate outcomes. Please note, Outcome 318 and Outcome 332 are required for all housing counseling. Section 5, Creating a Workshop in RX. From the dashboard, select Educational System, shown above, and then click Create Class, shown here on the right. In the Class Category drop-down box, select Individual Class. Complete all required information marked with the red asterisk. An RX Office file must be created for each workshop. All of the following items must be uploaded into the workshop file: the course description, the sign-in sheet. All mandatory fields in RX Office must be captured for each participant. Guidelines for eligible topics can be found in Chapter 3, Section 3-6 of the HUD Handbook, and also see the link to the HUD Handbook can be found on Counselor's Corner. And click Save. Once the workshop has been saved, select Educational System from your dashboard, shown above. The workshop will be available for editing. Select Name of the workshop, shown below here in the lower left-hand corner. To add an individual to a workshop in RX, select Add Client from the options shown here on the lower right-hand side. After the information has been completed for a client, click Save. Complete all information marked with a red asterisk. Repeat for all additional clients. If a client already exists in the system, to add them to the workshop, click on Client List, shown here in the lower right-hand side. This screen will appear. You may search by name, phone number, social security number. After entering search information, click Search. The client will appear in the workshop attendee list. Check the box with the client you would like to add, then select Add Client. A parent workshop is a workshop you create for a single workshop that has several sessions. For example, a counselor may hold a pre-purchase workshop that meets the first Saturday of each month for 4 months. The child workshop is each individual session. So in the class category drop-down box, select Parent Class. Complete all required information marked with a red asterisk, and then click Save. To create the child class, click Create New Class. Select Child Class from the drop-down. Complete all required information marked with a red asterisk, then click Save. After you save the child workshop, select the Educational System tab from the dashboard shown above. Click on the name of the parent workshop. Any client added to the parent workshop will also appear in the child workshops. Follow the same process for adding clients as for individual workshops. To close the individual parent or child workshop in RX, select each client individually and click Attended, shown here in the center bottom. After marking all clients in the workshop, click Cancel to return to the previous screen, which is the workshop list. Then select Close with the arrow showing here in the bottom right-hand corner on the red X. Enter the date the class was completed. Click Save. The workshop report cannot be generated until the workshop has been closed. Section 6, HUD Forms. There are PDF samples of the HUD forms found on Counselor's Corner, but all agencies are to contact their compliance officer for the Excel versions. All forms must be submitted in Excel format, and no other format is permitted. The reason for this is our billing system only accepts Excel formats only. Otherwise, it will throw out errors, which then takes additional time for me to go check those errors and then come back to the agency for the appropriate formats. Be aware that all forms have a majority of the document locked to prevent tampering with vital information. All forms are pre-formatted with required calculations. In rare occurrences, formulas have become broken. Your compliance officer is to be notified immediately so a new form can be issued. Agencies shall not attempt to correct the matter themselves. Tampering with forms that we have locked down by a funder could be considered fraudulent activity. Do not unlock, reformulate, or copy anything on these forms. The Personnel Activity Report, other known as the PAR. One PAR must be completed for each employee you will be charging to the HUD grant for providing housing counseling related services during the month the agencies are billing for. There are 4 main sections. Section 1 is used to report time spent on the HUD housing counseling grant related activities. Section 2 is used to report time spent on training and certification. Section 3 used to report time spent on marketing and outreach. Section 4 is used to report time spent on non-PHFA HUD activities and all other activities. Section 4 is used to track vacations, holidays, and trainings in this section. Please note, as the little asterisk here, subject matter being charged must be housing counseling related. If an employee's salary changes during the month, the employee must complete 2 PARs. The first PAR will reflect the current pay rate, base rate, pay rate fringe, and the effective date. The second PAR will reflect the new pay rate base, new pay rate fringe, and the effective date of the change. All hours for the month must be accounted for, including vacations, holidays, and sick days. This is our PAR, the top part of our PAR. The period of activity should be inputted as the last day of the month in the format displayed on the right-hand side of the field. This will cause what you inputted to reformat to display differently, which is correct. So the example shown up here, I inputted it as 5/31/2022. It will display as May-22. Item 2 here, hours must be reported in quarter hours, 0.25, 0.50, 0.75, or 0.00. And 3, the effective date of the employee's current rate. If the employee's pay rate, either base or fringe, changes, the effective date will also be changed. As this is now a locked field, your compliance officer must be notified prior to submitting billing. Note, all documentation submitted on previous versions will not be processed. It is imperative that the information we upload into our billing system is accurate and correct. So this is the left-hand side of the PAR, Section 1. So you can see the counseling oversight to processing, intake, and follow-up, processing billing, supervision, management, counseling. Section 1 of the PAR, enter all hours spent on the HUD counseling grant in each section. Note, Section 1 of the PAR should only reflect hours being charged to the PHFA HUD Housing Counseling Grant. You are not to include time spent on any other HUD grants you receive. The intake you charge to this program should be intake for housing counseling only and not intake for other programs. If the appointment scheduled was not an appointment with a housing counselor, then it should not be billed to the grant. If you are charging for processing billing, we are going to expect the invoices, PAR, and other required documentation to possess minimal errors. There should be no employee, supervisor, or executive on any PAR submitted who should be charging full days, every day under the supervision portion. If you are the director and your salary is provided for by the board of directors, charging full days of supervision for all your employees would be double dipping. You are collecting 2 sources of income to cover the same task. This cannot be done. If supervisors and/or managers are being billed against the HUD grant, the executive director should have only minimal time billed against the HUD grant. No employee should be charged 100% to this grant. As a PHFA participating agency, you are required to have several sources of funding in order to leverage and maximize your services and outcomes. Case management should not exceed 50% of recorded activity for each staff person unless they are intake coordinators. Ensuring that agencies are recording and charging counseling hours to the grant is essential. We cannot support a PAR that has administrative or oversight costs that grossly outweighs the counseling that is occurring. This is Section 2 of the PAR. This shows the grant training certification area. Section 2 is where new counselors would record hours spent learning the counseling process. National certification should be a national cert that PHFA requires, or one that counts as continuing education credit towards one of the certifications that we do require. Regular meetings with your staff or employees should not be charged to this grant. Webinars or courses that are not related to PHFA, national certification, or continuing education should not be charged to this grant. Counselors outside 120 days who are seeking continuing education should contact their compliance officer. Training costs are only allowed at 15% of the agency HUD grant allocation. Please be mindful of what you decide to charge the grant within that allocation. If there's been an outstanding change in staff complement, contact your compliance officer for additional consideration for training hours. Refer to the training and certification policy, and you must contact your CO if you have a circumstance that requires an exemption. Section 3, HUD Grant Marketing Outreach Activity section. For Section 3, the agency should record all hours spent by the agency staff only to design and implement housing counseling, marketing, and outreach campaigns. We do not expect to see all staff within an agency in this section. Marketing positions and activities are usually limited or delegated to specific staff persons. We will be looking for that specific pattern. Marketing cannot exceed 30% of the staff person's salary to exceed the agency's HUD allocation. Section 4, Housing Counseling Program Activity Not Funded by the HUD Housing Counseling Grant. So this is highlighted in green. This is the Section 4 where all other hours are accounted for. Section 4, enter all hours spent on activities other than the PHFA HUD Housing Counseling Grant. This includes other HUD grants such as Head Start and CDBG, as well as CHCI. Fields highlighted in green are customizable and should be adjusted to list funder and/or activity different than PHFA if applicable. Funders may be listed as many times as needed. HUD requires all hours in a workday to be accounted for. By using sections 1 through 4 of the PAR, you can accurately satisfy this requirement. All hours recorded for the employee should represent the total hours, including PTO and UTO, that the employee works for your agency and not just under the HUD grant. Hours worked each day should be consistent for the month. No more than 10 hours per day can be charged, and total employee hours for this row must reflect a full day of work. When saving the PAR, the following format must be used for the file name. So as we show up here, as counseling agency, the employee number, HUD, and then the period end date. So the example shown here in the middle is 777, which would be PHFA's agency number, employee 35, HUD, the year, and then the month. The worksheet tab must be renamed Sheet 1. Failure to submit the PAR in the correct format could result in your agency's billing not being processed. For the HUD billing invoice, it will show a yellow highlight here in the center. It will show a revision date. So for this version, revision of 8/1/2021 must be used. PHFA will communicate any additional revisions that will need to be used by your agency. So on the invoice for the Section 1, the hourly rate expenses, non-certified counselors will be highlighted on current invoices. So in this example, Justin Coleman and myself are listed in yellow highlight as non-certified counselors. So when I'm looking at billing, I'm looking at, is the person highlighted in yellow, and are they billing counseling hours? If they are billing counseling hours, that is prohibited because they are not HUD certified. Once a non-certified counselor is certified, it is your agency's responsibility to reach out and inform your assigned compliance officer for new billing documents. Section 1 of the monthly invoice includes the actual costs per employee based on the employee's hourly wage, the employee's fringe rate, total PHFA HUD hours. If an employee's hourly wage changes during a month, a separate PAR and invoice should be submitted for that employee and for his or her total HUD hours under each rate, respectively. All documentation submitted on previous versions will not be processed. Tampering with forms that we have locked down as a funder could be considered fraudulent activity. Do not unlock or reformulate anything on these forms. It is imperative that the information we upload into our billing system is accurate and correct. Hourly rate expenses, as it relates to your de minimis and your NICRA, we are looking at the billing methodology. And note here at the bottom, the rate is a marginal amount of your base pay rate. It will never be 50% of your base pay rate as it relates to your fringe rates. Invoice Section 2, the training and certification costs. For Section 2, training costs incurred that was directly related to housing counseling activities should be recorded in Section 2. The only allowable training costs are hotel costs for PHFA required housing counseling national certification, registration costs for national certifications. This includes the HUD Housing Counselor Certification Exam, as well as the HECM certification exam. Agencies must provide a paid invoice for all costs with their billing submission along with the certificate of completion. Costs associated with this section should be entered on the monthly billing when the activity associated with the section occurs. Required backup documentation is to be submitted at the same time. This includes the training log, the paid receipts, the certificate of completion, etc. Failure to submit reimbursements for training costs the month the training was conducted with all valid documents will result in billing being returned without review. Refer to the training and certification policy for more details. Section 3, indirect costs. If the agency is charging indirect costs, the rate the agency is using must be entered. If using a NICRA, the current NICRA must be on file with PHFA, and the rate must match the rate of the current time period. You may bill HUD for a portion of your monthly indirect costs using respective NICRA, which documentation is required, or the standard 10% de minimis. This section will have your agency's indirect rate pre-filled, and most of the section will be locked as the calculation is automatic. Fields highlighted in green are unlocked and customizable, but only apply to limited agencies who utilize the NICRA as opposed to the standard 10% de minimis. Please note, if you're going to use a NICRA, an explanation must be included if it applies. So the formatting of the invoice is much similar to the way the PAR. So we have the counseling agency number, HUD, invoice, INV only, and the period end date. So for our example here, 777 would be the PHFA agency number, HUD, INV 2022-0831. Worksheet tab must be renamed Sheet 1. Failure to submit the invoice in the correct format could result in your agency's billing not being processed. Case management activity and counseling activity logs. There are two logs that we require as it relates to client and non-client specific activity. So we have the case management activity log, and that's a recording of the date, time, duration, description of all activity performed other than that recorded on the counseling activity log. This includes hours for all individuals being billed to the HUD grant. This log should match the hours being charged for case management on the PAR. The HUD monthly counseling activity log is a recording of the date, time, duration, and description of each interaction or activity performed on behalf of the client. This includes hours for all individuals being billed to the HUD grant. This log should match the hours being charged for counseling on the PAR. So this is our case management activity log. As stated previously, there are two types of case management. One, activities associated with an identifiable client. Use the counseling log activity report from RX office. Combine this information with the case management activity log for completion. The second type of case management is activities not associated with an identifiable client. This must be recorded on a case management activity log and includes such things as reviewing billing, supervisory duties, or completing the 9902, etc. The activity log should encompass both types of case management. Further, if an agency is billing large amounts of case management hours, but the billing is not being submitted correctly, there may be restrictions placed on how much an agency can bill towards case management, if at all, going forward. The hours shown in this log must be the same as the counseling oversight section of the PAR submitted for the month. Case management activities can be billed for clients even if there were no counseling or workshop activities for that month. However, no activities can be billed before counseling has occurred. This log is required to be maintained and can be requested during billing submission review. Failure to maintain and produce all required documents will result in your agency submitting these logs monthly. This is the counseling activity log, and this is to be used when you are actively counseling individuals. This is used to log all counseling activities for the month. This form is designed to combine all of your counselor's activities that you charge the grant on one form. However, it is at your discretion if you choose to give this form individually to each of your counselors to record throughout the month. You should maintain one document that includes all counselors' activity report logs. A counseling activity report is separate from the counseling activity log, but I note it here because it can be generated from RX. So the counseling activity report shows all counseling appointments recorded in the user time log and reflected on the report. This should be used to ensure the information you are submitting on the counseling activity log is accurate and correct. Only activities described under the counseling activity or on the PAR are reported in this section and should match the log. Both the case type and case status fields must correspond with the information entered in RX Office for each of the clients listed in the counseling activity log. This log is required to be maintained and can be requested during billing submission review. Failure to maintain and produce all required documentation will result in your agency submitting these logs monthly. The training activity log, this is where you put down your training activity that you attend, as well as some marketing and outreach that you do as well. The training log is associated with housing counseling. It should be documented on the training log. Be as detailed as possible in the activity description to eliminate any delay in processing. So just don't tell me that you attended, HUD 235. Who presented the training? When was it presented? When was the date that it was presented? I need description so I can verify that it was actually completed. Record the hours in Section 2 of the PAR with the corresponding date and activity type. The hours charged in the PAR and the training log are to match. Questions should be directed to your assigned compliance officer. This log is required to be maintained and can be requested during billing submission review. Failure to maintain and produce all required documents will result in your agency submitting these logs monthly. And if you have new staff coming into the agency looking to bill for training, be sure to submit training backup documentation. So the HUD appointment report shown here, I have listed 3 specific issues that I normally see on a routine basis. The first type is case type and case status. So as I have shown up here, default and delinquency needs to match. So in the very beginning of the PowerPoint, there was actually a case type and case status snip picture that showed you the various HUD cases and the statuses. Use that as your guide to ensure that your counseling type meets what the case status should be. Number 2, the times that are reported. So you'll see here underneath number 2, we have times of 10:34 a.m., 3:18 p.m., 2:14 p.m. They need to be read as 10:30 a.m., 3:15 p.m., and 2:15 p.m. respectively. Note that RX office defaults to AM only, so for any afternoon appointments, you'll have to update the PM appointments. Number 3 is the missing column, which shows which fields are not complete on the worksheet. You must complete the missing fields in RX and rerun the report. Return a report and required documents to PHFA. In big, bold, yellow highlight down here, do not remove items from the missing column without making corrections. PHFA will return a report for your corrections, delaying your reimbursement. Much like our other formats here, when saving the HUD report, show appointments, agency number, the end date, and HUD. So for our example here, it would be in the middle, appointments, 777, which is PHFA's agency number, May 2022, HUD. Worksheet tab must be renamed Sheet 1. Failure to submit the HUD report in the correct format could result in your agency's billing not being processed. On this slide is a snip of the workshop report, and it includes all pertinent information required for a completed report. Run the workshop numbers and check the information in the workshop match the corresponding submitted PAR. The following fields are not required for HUD workshops: the case number, the lender name, and the social security number. So the workshop format, workshops, agency number, end date, and HUD. So for our example, in the center here, workshops, 777, May 2022, HUD. The worksheet tab must be renamed Sheet 1, and failure to submit the workshop report in the correct format could result in your agency's billing not being processed. Something to note while we're on the workshop report, the name of the HUD workshop has to be correct on the workshop report. Otherwise, I will have to return it to you because the system only accepts what the HUD workshop names actually are. So if you're using first-time homebuyer workshop, that has to be renamed to the appropriate HUD workshop name. Section 7, running the HUD report. So on the dashboard, select Report, shown here in the center. From the drop-down, select Executive Summary Reports. Running the HUD report. From the menu on the left, select PHFA HUD report. Input your data range for appointments. Select Show Report. And then export report as an Excel spreadsheet. So select the Export drop-down menu, choose Excel format, and then save to your computer. Running the HUD report. All required fields must be completed in the report. The missing column shows which fields are not complete on the worksheet. You must complete the missing fields in RX and rerun the report prior to billing submission. Do not remove items from the missing column without making corrections. Section 8, running the workshop report. To run a workshop report, from the dashboard, select Report, and then on the bottom shown, select Executive Summary Reports. Under the PHFA reports, select Workshop Report. Select the workshop closed from and workshop closed to dates. In the guarantor field, select the type of workshop or initiative. Click Show Report. Slide 101. Running the workshop report. Select the Export drop-down menu. Choose the Excel format and save to your computer. This is an example of the workshop report indicating all pertinent information required for a completed report. The following fields are not required for HUD workshops: the case number, the lender name, or the social security number. Section 9, billing instructions. Types of activities that may be billed in the HUD grant: case management, counseling activities, workshops and group education, training, and marketing and outreach. Refer to the HUD funding policy and the training certification policy for more details. Billing instructions. Billing must be submitted by the 5th of the month. Each month must be run separately. Do not send in June, July, and August on the same submission. All forms must be uploaded as Excel spreadsheets, except backup documentation for training expenses. PARs do not need to be signed or scanned. However, you must keep signed copies in your office. Create a hard copy or electronic file for each month of billing with all required forms for auditing purposes. Requested forms must be sent through secure email. Review each document thoroughly before submitting the PHFA. If an agency is billing large amounts of case management hours, but the billing is not being submitted correctly, there may be restrictions placed on how much an agency can bill towards case management, if at all, going forward. Please make sure that the information on all forms and spreadsheets coincide with the information in RX office. If they do not match, your reimbursement may be delayed. Please make sure that all required client information has been completed in the RX system, as well as on the reports prior to submitting the billing. If it is not complete, your reimbursement may be delayed. So when we go back in to verify if the 3-in-1 disclosures, the signed action plans, the credit reports have been uploaded, it takes time for us to ensure that compliance is there. If those forms are missing, then we actually have to contact your agency to have them uploaded, to make sure they have been uploaded, to make sure they were actually obtained in order to ensure that you can be paid for the counseling appointments. Failure to submit the requested documents in the correct format could result in your agency's billing not being processed. Tampering with forms that we have locked down by a funder could be considered fraudulent activity. Do not unlock or reformulate anything on these forms. No more than 10 hours per day can be booked under the HUD grant. You should be recording normal working hours as posted on your agency website. Required documents to be uploaded to PHFA, the Personnel Activity Report, HUD Report, Monthly Invoice, and the Workshop Report. Required documents to be maintained on site for each agency and readily available upon request. Signed copies of PARs, Counseling Activity Log, Case Management Activity Log, the training log if training occurred during the month, and the copies of backup documentation. Please note, when it comes to the activity logs, you need to be specific, and not cookie cutter approach, not check client files, answered phones. Be descriptive. Be descriptive of the activity that you're conducting. If your original billing submission is more than 60 days past its due date, you will need to receive approval from your assigned compliance officer prior to submitting your documents. Do not just assume that you can send them in. You must have approval from your CO prior to submitting your HUD billing that is late. Your compliance officers are Demir Castile and Bianca Santos. So for the RX review checklist, starting here on the left, is there anything in the missing column on the HUD report? Does every case have an outcome logged on the Case Info tab? Does a case have a credit score on the Case Info tab? Going up to the right column, does the client have a completed budget on the Finance tab? Have all required documents on the HUD funding policy been uploaded into RX Office underneath the Document Uploads tab? Have all notes and activity been accounted for and reported correctly in the user time log? As a billing submission review checklist, is there anything in the missing column on the HUD report? Does each counselor's counseling hours on the PAR match how many are reported on the HUD report? Does Section 4 of the PAR reflect by day a full month of work? Going to the right column, does column J on the invoice match cell AT58 on the employee's PAR? In essence, do the total billed hours on the PAR match the total billed hours on the invoice? Are all your agency's forms accounted for, and have they been peer reviewed? Have all the forms been saved in Excel format using the correct file naming format? For quarterly reports, contact your compliance officer for instructions on how to generate the HUD 9902 report in RX. PHFA schedules 9902 webinars each quarter, and please refer to the training schedule for upcoming webinars. Knowledge check. Here comes the fun part for you. Every agency that participates and views this webinar will reach out via email when completed to Lynn Maynard, that's me, with your certifying statement to receive the link to complete the knowledge check. This webinar will not give you credit for completing until the knowledge check is submitted and has a passing score of 80% or higher. For agencies that continue to have errors monthly when submitting billing, you will be given 3 months after viewing this webinar to clean up all billing. We will not be sending out correction emails after the webinar. If there are concerns or escalations due to this proposed action, please consult with your business development officer. Section 11, certifying statement. So certifying statement is the counselor name, counselor agency, and the date you reviewed the HUD billing requirements. This PowerPoint can be found on Counselor's Corner, Training, Manuals, HUD, PHFA's Interactive HUD Billing Training Webinar. For 9902 and compliance issues, please contact your compliance officer, Bianca Santos or Demir Castile. For billing assistance, please contact Bianca Santos or myself. I thank you for your time, and we welcome your feedback. There again, if you have any questions, please email me or give me a call. Thank you for your time.